Assumptions. When I think about those who don't go to church, that is the first word that comes to my mind. I think about the assumptions nuns, those who are religiously unaffiliated, make of those who attend church. That we are all climate science deniers, that we don't love or accept LGBTQ persons, that we are anti-vaccines or anti-facts, that we are all conservative theologically or politically. I think about the assumptions nuns, those who once participated but are now done with church, make of us. I wonder if they assume their experience of church, good, bad, or just boring, is all there is. I wonder if they know that the faith Jesus calls us to is absolutely relevant to our lives, even when the church isn't. And I think about the assumptions we make about those who don't go to church, about how those assumptions are dismissive of legitimate issues in Christianity as it is experienced and practiced today. Do we realize that our assumptions often say more about us than they do about them? In 2 Samuel, we encounter an odd little story of King David traveling with God's chest, or the Ark of the Covenant, as it is referred to in the Raiders of the Lost Ark. As David is bringing it back to Jerusalem, he is celebrating, dancing, some might say lewdly, and making sacrifices to God. One of David's wives, the former king's daughter, is watching from a window, and Scripture says, she saw King David jumping and dancing before the Lord, and she lost all respect for him. My mind makes all sorts of assumptions about what is happening in this text. Growing up Lutheran, my initial reaction to David's behavior is not all that different than his wives. This is not an appropriate way for a king to act. I used to do the same thing with people outside the church. I know I'm not alone in this regard. In my time in youth ministry, it was common to encounter silver bullet ideas, like if we only played contemporary music, they would start beating down the doors to come in. Or maybe if we had a bigger youth group, or a family ministry, or if we remodeled our nursery, people might just give us a chance. The problem with these assumptions is that they always said more about me or the people I heard them from than they said about the people outside the church. And if you really think about it, such thinking reduces us all to consumers who we can attract with the right product or a new coat of paint on the same old product. If, like me, King David's ecstatic dancing and animal slaughtering seems strange to you, think for a moment that to the person who has never gone to church, so many of our rituals might feel much the same. And it doesn't help us that Christianity's loudest voices in our culture are spewing a toxic distortion of the gospel of love. Finally, I will leave you with this thought. There is freedom on the other side of our assumptions. If we don't assume too much about those neighbors of ours who don't attend a religious community, we are free to get to know them for who they really are. We may even discover we share more with them than we think. And if we can recognize that decent, thoughtful people have been formed outside of the church, maybe, just maybe, we can free ourselves from some of the internal traps we catch ourselves up in about how things need to be the way they have always been. It is unlikely that you will ever catch me dancing in the streets for Jesus. It's just not going to happen. But there are certainly a few sacred cows that I would gladly sacrifice for the Lord.